So in the movie context, they're trying to, break into this incredibly secure vault that has multiple layers of locks, and they have a password to get through one thing, and then they have a bunch of mechanical things that they have to get through. But the problem is they're in this giant building, and this thing has got an electromagnetic lock, which sounded really cool in 1984, whenever this movie came out. And you can't possibly do anything about it because it's powered by the city infrastructure to the whole building. And so the specialist is unable to deal with that problem. He can get them to the point of that wicket, but then he can't get them through that. And so, like, what are we going to do? This is going to take a miracle to solve this problem. So what we see in the movie is that this is a foreseeable problem. It's a difficult thing, but it's a foreseeable problem. And they describe the solution in the setup of the problem. Like, oh, well, we can't do anything about it because the power is connected to the city grid. So what we find out in the course of the movie was that despite the fact that they are just there for a heist, Hans has been messaging to the outside world the whole time that they're terrorists, that they want their revolutionary brothers in arms freed, and that they're punishing the company for its sins, and they've got all these political aspirations. And so what that does is it brings in the FBI. And the FBI has a standard terrorism playbook, part of which is to cut the power to the supply of wherever they're hanging out so that they're sitting in the dark and they're scared. So he's seeing far enough over the hill that he's like, okay, I've got your miracle right here. I've got the FBI.
That's good because it connects back to what you keep saying here, which is definitely going to be one of our key takeaways. The job of the leader is to see over the hill, and to see over the hill sometimes requires diligence and just effort being put into like research and endeavor. It takes that, right? But it also takes collaboration because no one person can see over the hill. And this is definitely applicable as we look at business and technology. Nobody has enough information to just be able to figure out where the roadmap should go, whether it's a product roadmap and how are we going to develop out this solution that we're working on, or whether it is like an overall business strategy, or even just your life. If you just look at me individually, like where do I want to go in life? I am not by myself suitable to understand where I need to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, because I have not yet lived that part of life. I would be much better off, and nor do I have all the information about where the world, the external environment is going. I'd be much better off to seek counsel from others to be able to, as you put it, see over the hill.
Right. And as we're talking about this, it kind of occurs to me that we talked a little bit about judging character and understanding other people's sort of motivations and sizing up. If you surround yourself with competent people, then you'll recognize competence when you see it. But I think the other thing that Hans is displaying, which is not entirely reasonable for us to do all the time, but he's very good at understanding motivations, not just at a personal level, but at an organizational level. Like he understands how the police are going to behave. He understands how the FBI are going to behave. He understands how the hostages are going to behave. Like he's trying to sort of manage his way through like understanding these not just relationships, but the intrinsic motivations and how can you leverage those to get in the direction that he wants to go. He understands these, like intrinsic motivations that these different groups have or these different organizations have, and how we can leverage those to get where he wants to go. And so having the FBI cut the power for him and solve his problem when they think they're solving their problem is a classic, like, Dale Carnegie, 7 Habits of Effective Leaders negotiation synergy thing, but it's pretty funny to watch on screen.
That is good. And yeah, like you said, you can't do that all the time. There's not always going to be the opportunity where you're like, well, we really need this wall knocked down, but we don't have the right like specialized resources to knock this wall down. But what if the people who are in charge of holding the wall up knock the wall down for us? And that is very effective in change management. That's exactly what you need to do sometimes. It's like sometimes there is a upholder of the current way of doing things, and that person is very staunchly defendant of the way we do things today. And you come in and you're like, okay, I'm not going to be able to just straight up convince you that there's a better way. It's not a person who, and again, this isn't a knock on them. It's just not a person who values logic as the highest form of being convinced of something.
Or they might just not have the same motivations you do, right? They might not value the goal that you're going after.
Yeah. So instead, is there another way? Is there a way we can convince this person for a different reason that, like you said, is their own motivation that they should knock the wall down? And then now we just have a way. We could just drive right in with the new ideas and plant them.
So this is the whole Inception movie, right? This is the making somebody else think it's their idea, which is a basic negotiating technique. He's also got a little bit of the Huckleberry Finn, like, oh, you really want to paint the fence for me situation going on
Yeah.
here. So yes, you got to respect that. And like I said, at that level, with that level of drama, of course, maybe not isn't a practical win that you're going to get a lot of time. But the idea that you're playing other people's motivations so that they align with yours, even in this case somewhat cynically, but the idea that you would be sensitive to what other people want and be able to take advantage of that insight, those are attributes that would make someone a skillful leader. And I think the last thing we need to say here, of course, is that we spent a lot of time in the last 113 episodes developing this context of the magnanimous leader. And of course, Hans Gruber is not that, right? We have the basic problem that he is deeply immoral and that he's perfectly happy to, lie, cheat, steal, and murder on his way to getting his goals. But the aspirational part of it, the fun thing about studying him, right, is that he's got this big picture, he's broken it down into individual chunks, and he's sort of figured out how to solve the individual problems. Like, we have to get into the building and we have to lock down the building, and then we have to get hostages, and then we have to, get into the vault, and then we have to figure out a way to get out without everybody knowing that we've gotten away with all the money. Like, so he's trying to solve these individual problems at a modular level without maybe being the specialist that can solve all of them himself. And that is a thing that you can aspire to.
Definitely. And we'll talk in the next episode a little bit about how that falls apart, the perfect execution of the plan when it starts to fail. Then what do you do?